Let's start by creating a new project in NetBeans, and we'll call it Predictive Text. Let me make this a little bigger so you can see. And we don't need any of these comments, so let's get rid of them. Okay, the first thing we want to do is set up the user interface, which is really just going to be a menu of 3 options that the user can choose from. And we'll have it in a continuous loop so they can use our program as long as they want, trying out all the different options. This is something we've done many times before, so it should look pretty familiar by now. Something I haven't really talked about in any of the previous videos is what the word static means, so I think now is as good a time as ever to talk about that. Our main function begins with the word public static, and static really just means this function is not an integral part of every object we instantiate from the predictive text class we just created. The function is merely there for driving our program. The same thing applies to variables. If you put the word static in front of a member variable in a class, then that variable will hold the exact same value in every object you create of that class. It's no longer a unique component of each object. So what does that mean? Well, until you really understand static, just try to avoid using it. One of the common mistakes beginning programmers make is to make all of their functions static, because their main function can't call another function unless that other function is static as well. Well, how do we get around this without using static then? We simply create a version of ourself inside of the main function. Then, whenever we need to call a function, we just call it on that object of ourself we just created. Let me show you what I mean. The class where the functions will be is right here. It's called the Predictive Text class. So let's create a predictive text object inside the main function. And we'll just call it PT for predictive text because the name doesn't really matter and it's easy to type and understand. And of course, to get keyboard input from the user, we're going to need a scanner. And we need to import it. Okay, then we'll set up a loop that goes on forever using the condition true. And in that loop, we'll display some text with the menu options they can choose. And the 3 options we want to give the user are to train the computer using a text file, to train the computer manually by typing, and to let the computer show off what it's learned by writing an essay. And we'll get the user's input as a variable named choice. We'll say if they choose 1, we'll call a function for reading from a training file. And that function doesn't exist yet, so it tells us there's an error. So let's comment this function call out for now, until we create that function. And if they choose 2, we'll call another function we haven't yet created. And the same thing with option 3. And then we'll make it skip a line, so the next time it displays the menu, there will be a gap in front of it, and it's just easier for the user to see the choices they've already made. Okay, now let's run it to see what it should look like so far. I've got my options. I can choose 1. I can choose 2. I can choose 3, but of course nothing happens yet because we haven't written those functions we commented out.